Hi there, welcome back to the Wednesday's Child podcast. And you're going to be delighted to hear you've got two of us, you've got double trouble. You've got Sarah and Debbie hosting this episode. Hi, Sarah, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Now that the slight crazy heat wave has dropped ever so slightly in Middlesbrough,
Oh, have you got rain there?
we had quite a big chunk of rain last night, and it feels like when you wake up and you kind of go, we can do
There's
that
a
again. We
smell,
can
isn't there, to
breathe.
rain,
Yeah.
rain. We haven't had it yet here, but it just feels like, oh God, really need it. It feels really oppressive. So,
No, it's feeling much more bouncy and buoyant today, I think.
well, hopefully we can inject some bounciness and buoyantness to the podcast episode. I mean, it's been a few weeks, hasn't it? We've had a couple of guests and we've had some different themes and things, but obviously we always kind of drop off a little bit over the holiday season, but we do like to give our listeners the pleasure of having you and I check in with them. And it's high time, as it's midway through August, and sort of maybe a good, I guess, as the mummy you're on the show, you'll know it's halfway through the summer holidays now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Having a 13-year-old is really weird because when they're little, it's like the summer holidays are a great big thing, and then they hit teenagers. Any parents of teenagers out there will be chuckling now, and they just don't want to do anything. I mean, anything, nothing at all.
Really? Oh,
It-
you surprised me.
so I'm working for the first time in a long time over the summer. And she's not bothered one bit. I thought she'd be all mournful and bereft because I wasn't around, but no, couldn't care less.
Oh my goodness, but you've still got a role in our lives, Sarah. So that's the important.
Thank you.
Well, I thought what we'd use this episode for is to check in on some of the mail drops that we've had over the last few weeks and some of the kind of common themes that I guess won't surprise any of us to know that these come up so regularly during the summer season. And a lot of the questions and queries, dilemmas, whatever concerns, they're really based around that summer period and people feeling that maybe they've stepped off their normal routine over a holiday, maybe gone away with friends and family, and now they're wanting to kind of return and go back to behaviours, or they're feeling their weight's changed, or they found issues because they've worn summer clothing. Oh my goodness, we talked about that one before, haven't we? But all those kind of issues, I thought we could dig into some of those and reflect on our own thoughts about whether we found summer more difficult, or how we find it now, and whether we think summer is worse for those of us that have had anything related to body image issues and in particular kind of disordered behaviours around food. So if you were just to reflect a little bit on kind of the path that you went through, do you think summer holiday season created particular challenges for you?
Yeah, huge ones for all the reasons you just stated there, and many more. I think, like you said, I think the first thing, let's pick on the first thing you said there. Let's maybe explore the idea of routine. I think it's a blessing and a curse, isn't it? The routine in recovery, and I know we've spoken about this again in past episodes where many people need a routine to get them out of the depths of their illness and into some sort of sense of recovery, but then get hung up on living by that routine.
It's when you become obsessed by the new behaviour, isn't it?
Yeah. And then you become just as inflexible as you were before, because the new routine is now what professionals even say are keeping you safe. I'm doing my rabbit ears. And then all it takes is a summer wedding or a christening or a cheeky weekend in the Lake District or a week in Spain if you're lucky enough. And then that routine goes to pot because it has to, because that's life.
Yeah. And the thought of just doing that, I mean, I can remember so many times when I had the opportunity to do things, and just the thought of, oh, hold on a second, that means changing my gym routine, or where I would have my breakfast and the time I would have my breakfast. And what do you mean if we were to get a flight at this time? Well, that would knock this out and I do this at this time. Just the thought of doing it became so enormous that it became easier. And here we go again about that kind of world of making excuses, as we all do, in particularly in quasi recovery as well. I think, sometimes we think, oh, we're doing really well, but actually we're still making excuses to maintain a way of life that feels like our comfort blanket. And I lived in that world for a long time. Lots of the weight had restored. I was doing much better on the surface level around, oh yeah, she seems to be eating, she seems to not to be a bit more flexible around food, but actually, so long as, if you unpick it, she is still able to do XYZ exactly when she wants and always fit in this amount of exercise or this amount of movement and get access to food at this time and have nobody around her at this time. It was really entrenched still.
And then you get that next layer, don't you? So you've got that entrenched where the routine is so solid around, like you said, activity, food, timings, types of knives and forks, and all that kind of thing. And then you get yourself to a stage, and this was me a couple of summers back, where you can go on holiday and you can have that I'm not packing anorexia. You know, I say to people I befriend, right, do not pack anorexia. She's not invited on this holiday. So you don't pack her, but you leave her in the bedroom at home. So as soon as you come back from holiday, you do that thing where you open your suitcase and you've had this wonderful time and you've sensed freedom and you've explored with different foods and different timings. You walk through your front door and bang, you're back. You're like, it's almost like she just grabs hold of you the second you come home. So rather than using the holiday as a springboard to more recovery and more progress, as soon as you go back, it's too easy to slip back into anorexia's rules.
And you and I have very openly kind of shared and rolled our eyes at some of the emails that we've had in recent months where people have said, you know, I did really well and I gave myself permission to do this for a few weeks. Hold on a second. You gave yourself permission to do something that actually you should have been doing 365 days a year. And it's still that there's kind of understanding. If your mindset is telling you that the thing that you do temporarily for a 10-day holiday is the exception, then you're still getting it wrong.
Yeah.
That's the bit that should be the rule. Walking down to a breakfast buffet and having scrambled eggs and also your bowl of Cocoa Pops or whatever, and knowing you're going to have an ice cream by the pool, that's the equivalent that you should be doing every day and not feeling bad about it. Not thinking, I'm doing this for 7 days because back at home in my bedroom is anorexia in the drawer, and the minute she's there, I'm going to get her out and we'll start life again.
I went to Spain this holiday. I was really fortunate. I managed to get a week in the sunshine. We've had enough sunshine over here, man. I probably could have saved myself some money.
I'm not trying to shade of green. Can you see me trying to shade of green?
But anyway, so we went to Spain. I had croissants every morning, like eight mornings, croissants, jam. I had cheese every lunchtime, you name it. So everything on offer for food wise in Spain today was so far off the ED list. It was unreal. I came home and then it sort of just continued, and nothing fell off, you know, my body's still intact. And I just had a nice week, and I've come home and we're still having a nice week. And I think the bit that you're hinting at there, Debbie, is what sometimes people forget when they're in recovery, is that the purpose of recovery is to recover. The purpose of recovery is not to live in this, or I'm in recovery life for the rest of your life, which is bound by medical appointments and prescriptions and weigh-ins and checks and routines and meal plans and blah, blah, blah. Maintenance plans. Oh my goodness, there's that phrase, Debbie. That phrase comes up in the summer a lot, doesn't it? I'm going to get back home and I'm going to get back on my maintenance plan. I needed a massive swear then.
The media justifies that, because I think even in non-ED world, and frankly it is eating disordered, but it just kind of it kind of wears a cloak of, oh, this is healthy lifestyle, healthy living. The media uses words like, you know, maintenance plan for life after you've done your crash, this diet, that diet. I'm not going to name them because nobody needs that from here on Wednesday's Child podcast, but you know, it is that kind of, and then you can live on this regime for the rest of your life. Yeah, but it's still a regime. It's still telling you that that's a behavior you have to follow for the rest of your life. Actually, you don't need to. You need a spontaneous relationship with eating and with exercise. And that's where you get the passion for life. That's where you get the ability to really live. And I think the thing that I try so hard to stress to everyone that we befriend and everyone that we kind of bump into through this wonderful community is life and living is not just about surviving with the remnants of your eating disorder that now make it manageable. That's not life, and that's not where we're trying to get you to. We're trying to get you to a place where you say, I had my croissants and cheese in Spain, and you know what, I came home and I thought, bloody hell, good on you, and it's carrying on.
And it is giving yourself permission to have that holiday and give yourself permission to try. And it might be that before you go, or even if you're not going on holiday, you're just in this period where you might have a couple of weeks off work, or obviously school's finished and what have you. And you might need to sit with someone and say, look, August's tough for me. Like you always talk about getting your cheerleading squad, don't you? You know, get your squad around you. August's tough for me. I need to do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to help me, and make it so that it becomes a shared experience.
Yeah, I find for me, even now. So August, yes, I find it a little bit more difficult, and it's because I have a different kind of life to you. I have a life where, because I don't have children and a husband, my life doesn't kind of navigate around the school holiday period. But what I do find is a lot of my friends are that age group where they have got parents and children. So automatically, the friends that I look forward to having the meals out with, going around theirs for dinner, meeting them up for coffees, lots of the social engagements that excite my brain and stimulate me, but also ones that often revolve around food and shopping and movement or whatever, those people aren't there. So I have to see that coming down the track and think, oh, what does that 6 weeks look like for me when some of my best friends are otherwise busy with other things in life? And it's always really important for me now to pre-plan. And I don't mean pre-plan within an inch of my life, but to have things in my life that I'm looking forward to doing for that period. Otherwise, it can feel like the rest of the world is living the summer and you're not, because you're sitting and waiting for other people to come back and be part of your world again. And then it's your excuse to say, well, of course, the eating disorder comforted me because no one was there for me.
And mine's the opposite. So mine's the opportunity to give myself the chance to always practice my just say yes technique. So because the vast majority of my friends are from the teaching world where I used to exist, during term time, they're like, no, not doing anything, not leaving the house, not doing anything. No. The summer holidays, it's like every day someone's texting me, oh, Sarah, can we go out for lunch? Sledge, should we go out for tea? Oh, meet me for drinks. So I have to really, really, really practice my just say yes, because I could quite easily panic because if this is taking me out of all sorts of routines and this is about spending money on myself and eating in different places, I could quite easily say, oh, I'm so sorry, you're off, I'm not, I'm too busy. So for me, it's the opposite. It's having to like say, yes, I haven't seen this person for 3 months. They are really important to me. So yes, we will go to the cinema. Yes, we will go out for tea.
Yeah, it's a balance, isn't it? And
It
it's
is.
about being really honest, that conversation with yourself saying, why am I accepting or rejecting that opportunity to do this thing? Am I doing it because actually I really need that time to myself, or because I need to learn? I mean, that's the other thing. I need to learn to be independent. I was talking to somebody that I'd befriended the other day, and she was saying about how she felt like some of her behaviors were morphing into someone that she spent a lot of time with, you know, the style of clothes that she was wearing, or the things, the places that she chose to go out to, because she knew that person was the kind of culture vulture that wanted to attend this thing. And she realized that she'd slipped away from realizing, actually, I don't even know if I like doing those things or wearing those things, but I've spent so long with that person. And I think we do have to be careful when we're recovering from an eating disorder not to become a little bit codependent on people that we surround ourselves with. So in actual fact, the summer's a great opportunity to surround yourself with different kinds of people, isn't it? And you know, people that you don't ordinarily when life is just ticking along normally, which is what makes holidays great, isn't it? You know, I've been sharing with you that I'm looking to book a really exciting holiday at the end of the year. One of the things I'm looking forward to is just sitting on a plane next to someone that whose life I've never known anything about and might have some different experiences. And I think that's what we're put on this planet to do, isn't it? Find out about other people as well as them hear about us.
Most definitely. Find out about other people, meet other people, befriend other people, get friendly with other people, but don't fall into the trap of comparison. That was the second thing I wanted to bring up about what's sometimes tricky or has been tricky for me in the past in holidays, is that dreaded comparison. You know, you're sitting in a park on a bench and you're looking at all these people and having that feeling that everybody else is living a life that's so much better than you, and everybody else is existing in a body that's so much better than yours. And that's such a horrendous trap. And for me, the summer really peaked that. So whether that was because people were in lesser clothes, or whether because people were just out more because, you know, they're walking to the shops rather than getting in the car because it's a nice day.
We see more of people, don't we? They're not hidden behind doors or car doors or whatever.
Yeah. So comparison for me in the summer was a biggie.
Can I ask just like so candidly of your experience, what sort of season was it when you came out of your period of inpatient or even day services? Were you entering the summer at a point that you got better? Because I wonder sometimes whether emerging into our first summer as the butterfly after the chrysalis, is that the most challenging time for different outfits, different recognition of yourself?
Yeah, I suppose I came out of, it's actually, thinking about it, I came out of services, well, came out of hospital in the March and then it went crazy wrong. And then in the following January, that's when I decided in 2019, right, this is it now. you've got a year. So I suppose from January to say June, July, there's like 6-7 months of real focus, determined. So that summer was tough for me. And that might be like you said there.
July, you've done a lot of wearing your kind of wintry stuff for a bit.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of the, we've spoken about, haven't we? Like you have to do the nutritional rehabilitation and all the stuff that's got a thing you can do. And then maybe I was hitting that period where you're like, well, what do I do now? And that's when you've got to sit with all the emotions. You've got to really look at the behaviors. And that hit summer when obviously there was no work and I was at home and Amy was busy. And so yeah, actually that summer was quite tough for me. But I'm not meaning this sound like, please, people that are listening, we are not God's gifts to recovery. We talk enough about all the pigs and troughs and the bullshit that we both went through. But I just had to stick at it because the whole point of recovery is to recover. And you go through the screaming and the tantrums and the upset so that then you can, in a few years later, you can go to Spain every day and you can eat croissants. Yeah. As much as you want,
absolutely. And I'm always at pains to say that because I do think it's really important for those people that listen to you and I and think, oh, well, I get like, I'm sure there are people that think, oh, but I can't crack it. How did you just crack it? How did you magically do it? And I think we've said enough in the past, and I'd reiterate again now, it's not easy and there are still challenges. And I bet if you're honest, and if I'm honest, even now there are times that you look at somebody else and you think, I had a body that looked more like that, or I did that kind of level of exercise once upon a time, or I was able to have meals that look like that, or whatever it is, for negative or not, you still find yourself having those flashback moments where you do almost get drawn to that comparison. But where the healthy bit is in me is that compass point where I think, oh, wait a second, what was that thought in your head? No, thank you very much. No, thank you. I prefer the life I've got now.
Yeah, there's a couple of days in Spain, Debbie, where I had my swimming costume on and I felt utterly shit, like shitter than shit. And I don't mind, I will say that to everybody, shitter than shit. How many times can I say that word in one podcast? I felt dreadful.
I don't think our mother's listening, so it's okay.
But that voice you're saying there, I felt absolutely pit in my stomach terrible in my bathing costume on a couple of days in that holiday. But I absolutely refused to cover myself up because the second I'd covered myself up, I was buying into the fact that someone in my head was telling me, you're not as good as those, look at the state of you compared to them, look at that, oh my goodness me. If I'd have put my sarong on and a baggy t-shirt like I was desperate to, then that voice is won. So I just had to sit there and go through my coping mechanisms and stand up and walk to the pool and stand at the edge of the pool and jump in, and just had to go through and sit with that feeling so that voice couldn't win. So next time I go to Spain, hopefully that voice will be even less. And I might sit there and going, yeah, I'm not as bronzed and I'm not 6 foot like you, but I'm 5'3" and I'm pretty cool.
Yeah. I think also maybe one thing that's helpful being in the situation as you are, because obviously you went away with Amy, whose teenage daughter, and a friend of hers, I think, as well.
Yes, yeah.
So I wonder whether perhaps even somewhere subconsciously in your mind is knowing that actually the healthy Sarah is helping to perpetuate the right message to girls like that, who do not need to be looking at the skinny minis around the side of the pool and idolizing them, when actually those very people could be living very unhappy lives in their unnaturally thin bodies or whatever it might be.
And my Amy's class. She's class. She's built like me. She's a bit taller than I am, but she's got a very similar frame to me. And she was walking around. She did have a big t-shirt on because she'd burned herself, but underneath that she had this bright orange bikini, but she had like a snorkel and flippers. No one else did, but she wanted to learn how to scuba dive, so she's going to teach herself, and she couldn't give a shit. Like, I just kept looking at her thinking, your class. And a couple of times she came out of the pool and her bikini top had like slipped and she had half a boob hanging out, and she's like, oh dear, and I just thought, oh, look at that. Look how cool that is.
Do you remember that? Have you ever seen that? It's just because you're making me think of a kind of graphic flashback now. Do you remember the film with Cher, Mermaids?
Yes.
Yeah. With her little daughter, and she's trying to swim. She's trying to learn to be a world swimmer in the bath or something.
Yeah, something like that. She's got all of her kit on.
Yeah, beautiful.
But that's a really important point you made there, though. Just is that if we have got parents listening, and it's not a guilt thing, do not feel guilty for doing it. But if you do have teenage boys or girls around you, or older children, the way that we talk to ourselves, they will hear. And the way that we preen ourselves, they will see. So it's just being, I've had to have a really big shift, because that's what I did when Amy was younger. I would talk about the fact I hated my stomach. I would talk about, and that's banned now, because they will hear, they do pick it up. And it's not, you don't need to feel guilty about it. We just need to try and shift any conversations like that away from them.
Yeah. And I think the more you're conscious of it, it's not an overnight change, is it? I think talking to any parent right now who already is in the habit of, they have 6 cans of Diet Coke in the fridge every day, they have light this, diet that, always order the smallest calorie option on the menu, and then don't think their children are picking up on that. This isn't about chastising you, but it is saying, if that's your way of life, just have a think about that. Just think, what small things could you change that actually you recognize are not the best form of healthy, happy relationships with food and exercise that you have, that you would want to perpetuate for your child. And so, you're not going to overhaul those things, but just be a bit more aware, because I think we slip into it, don't we?
Yeah,
we slip into it because we bought into, we should grow up as women buying Diet Coke and thinking that light yogurts are the best things, like spread or whatever it might be. But just being aware of those, particularly if you're around children. But even if I know I've got no children, but I have got nieces, and it makes me incredibly aware when I go out that I'm ordering things that don't have those don't dip towards the diet narrative, and what they choose to make of that, that's fine. But I think in a way, perhaps you're even more aware of it when it's not your children.
Yeah,
you don't want to cause the wrong influence. How their parents parent is maybe slightly different, but I know I need to make the right choices for them.
And when it comes to the end of the day, it's the summer, and the summer, we don't get much of it in England, let's be frank. So let's get some vitamin D. Let's smile at the sunshine. Let's grow some sunflowers and just leave the ED well and truly locked away somewhere, and use this as your momentum, because the purpose of recovery is to recover after all.
Absolutely. And we'll be doing some sort of more updates over the next few weeks to look at how beyond the summer, when sometimes we go through this period in the autumn and thinking, oh, and what now? Do we just wait for Christmas? We're going to be coming up with lots of kind of motivational stuff that we're going to get you involved in, a little bit of online events and exercises that you can take part in, and also some in-person events, which I know we've talked about on and off, but we are very intent on making those happen. So I hope that has helped just touch on the issues around summertime living with recovery. And as ever, Sarah and I really enjoy receiving your letters and emails about how you're getting on. So if you are the person that's got married this summer, or had your first child, or gone on your first holiday since you came out of an inpatient unit, tell us about that. Equally, if you're someone, and I know there are a couple of people I'm in touch with who found yourself in an inpatient unit this summer, and you want to tell us what that feels like, how sad you are, how disappointed you are, but also how dedicated and committed you are to recovery, tell us about it, share it with us. And your parents and carers as well. Tell us how you have felt being on that holiday, which has made you aware of your child's behaviour with food and exercise, or indeed your own. What have you learned? What could we do to help you support somebody else in recovery? This entire community of Wednesday's Child, it really does exist and flourish on the basis of what you contribute to it. So please don't think this is one-dimensional. Sarah and Debbie love the sound of their own voice, so they like to do a podcast episode every now and then. It really is about getting your feedback and your stories, because we too can then share them with, whether it's our eating disorder NHS providers in our communities or in your areas. All these things that we do as a platform help contribute to what the national picture looks like about how people are being supported with eating disorder recovery. I think that's kind of got the message across, don't you, Sarah? Yeah,
I think so.
Okay, so if you want to get in touch and share any of that, positive or negative, or any queries or topics for next time, drop us an email at hello@wednesdayschild.co.uk. But for now, that's been Sarah, and that's been Debbie, and this has been the Wednesday's Child podcast. Thanks for joining.